Hi guys, and welcome to this video about Parkour Race and about how you can actually use this product when you bought it. So first of all, Parkour Race is a fun game in which you have to run across a difficult parkour, which you can set up yourself because all of these pieces here are modular, all of these pieces are 100% replicated, and eventually the goal is that you as the first player have to reach this little trophy here. So with Parkour Race we have two levels here that we give you by default, and both of them have a completely unique layout and have some different gameplay actors essentially. And in this video I'm going to basically take you through the required setup once you bought this game of how you can make your own custom levels and also how you can switch out the character, for example. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. So the first things first, let's look at where we can find the character that we have inside of Parkour Race and how we can actually switch that one out. So if we go over here into the Parkour Race folder, then we see that under assets we have a demo folder, so you can also open this one up. And in this demo folder, we see that Parkour Race makes use of the third-person template character. So the first thing that I recommend doing is once you get your own character into here with your correct animation files and all that stuff, is to actually put that inside of the assets folder and then make a folder, call it character, and put your character inside there. And then that character folder will basically contain your character folder as this demo folder contains the third-person template folder. And then the second thing to do is that you go over to blueprints and then you go to core, gameplay, and then inside of gameplay you go to the players folder, and in here you see the blueprint character. So this is essentially the class that contains all of the logic for your character, and it also contains your mesh with your animations. So the way to switch this out with your own custom character is that you can click here on the mesh, and then we see that the mesh basically consists out of two parts. So we see the skeletal mesh here. So over here you would click the drop down and then you would select your own skeletal mesh in here. And then the animation class, it's important that you then assign your own animation blueprint here so that your character will work. If your character is a different size, then I also recommend clicking on the capsule component here and then scaling the half height and the radius to fit your character. Then the last thing to do is that we have the player name here, which is showing the name of the player above the character's head. And make sure that if your character is bigger or smaller, that you put this player name in a position where it can still properly be seen. Alright, that's essentially all you have to do in order to switch out your character. Then what we have here inside of the character is that we got this function for SR set appearance, which means on the server we set the appearance. This appearance is generated inside of our player state. So if we have a quick look here inside of the player state, we see this function here on begin play that we generate an appearance ID. So we generate whether or not we are a male or female in this case, and we generate a color ID. So the color ID is 0 to 4, which means 5 different types of colors, and then we set that we initialized the appearance. Then as soon as your character is actually spawned, then this function here set appearance is actually called, which will then set a rep notify that the character is a male, and it will set the color. So in here we simply have some code to define that we have a male character, and then we also set the animation class, or that we have a female character in this case, and then we set the animation class as well. If you do not make use of that, I recommend that you simply delete this variable here, and then also delete the corresponding rep notify here on the left. And then also this event is responsible for setting this appearance color ID, and inside of here we simply have a function that creates dynamic materials, and then in the material of this character, so if I select the character, we see that it has here two material instances, but inside of the core material, so in the main material, we actually set a little parameter that says character color. And then what we do here is that based on the generated color ID for your character, we essentially just switch out the character color. If you also do not make use of this in your game, since you might have a completely different character that does not switch the color, then I also recommend completely removing all of this code and also removing then the variable for this code, so appearance ID, and removing here also the on rep for this. Alright, so that's all for the character and how you can switch out this kit with your own character. Then let's actually have a look at the levels and how levels work and what the required gameplay actors are for levels. So first things first, if we go here inside of the Parkour Race folder, we see a folder called Maps, and inside of the Maps folder we see two gameplay levels that we give you by default. So it's gameplay level 1 and gameplay level 2. If you want to make an additional level, you can go here to the top left and click on new level, and then here you can click on basic, to create your first new level. And in here, you can basically start creating whatever you like. So the first thing that is essential is that you click on the World Settings tab here. And if you do not have this tab, then you can click here on Windows, and then here you can select World Settings so that this tab actually shows up. And the first thing that you have to do when creating a new level is that in that World Settings tab, you have to set the game mode to be the Blueprint game mode gameplay. And this gameplay game mode is responsible for things such as spawning the characters and just handling the overall gameplay logic, as it contains all of the other classes for the gameplay as well. So first thing you do, assign that gameplay class. And then from there, you can basically start building out your level. So over here, we have an asset folder, and then inside of levels, we got props. So from here, you can basically drag all of these props and start building your level. I recommend setting your grid to something like 100. And then you just drag these assets in and you can start shaping whatever you like. Now, if you want to start off with an example level, that's possible too. So you can also just go to maps and go to gameplay level 2, for example. And then here you can just also modify this level. So what I recommend in that scenario is that you right click a level and then click on duplicate. And then you can call this one gameplay map tree underscore level. Then if you go inside of this level, then over here, what you can do is obviously just select all of these props and just switch them out. So simply put them in different locations, put different gameplay actors, etc., etc. Okay, and then what's next? So when you create a new level, what do you have to code in order to actually be able to host the level? Well, what you have to do is that essentially you go here to widgets, and then in the widget folder, we go to main menu, and in main menu, we see widget blueprint main menu. Then inside of the widget blueprint main menu, we see here in the widget switcher, we see a host game menu. And in the host game menu, we see maps, and then we see map 1. And if we click on this option switcher, what we call it, we see options here on the top right. And we see that the options are currently map 1 and map 2. So the first thing you're going to do here, if you have an additional map, is click on the little plus and then type in map 3. Now this option switcher here can switch from map 1 to map 2 to map 3. And then what you do is that you go over into the graph. And then if you go to the event graph, then what we see here is that we have this panel called host game. If you zoom into this panel, then we see here that when you click on the host game button, we create the session. And then over here, we see a switch on string based on the selected map from the option switcher. So what you have to do here is that you copy paste the open level node, that you add another pin, plug that pin in, select this switch on string, and then open up the pin names. And over here, we can then type in map number 3. So if the selected option is map number 3, then the level that we want to open is gameplay map number 3 underscore level. And then you can actually host the level that you just created. So that takes care of that. Now we can go ahead and close this widget and close this as well. All right. And then the last thing that we have to do in order to properly host a match is that if we go back inside of the blueprints folder, go over to core, gameplay, core, blueprint game mode gameplay, go here to the left in the functions category. We see a function category called level travel, and it says travel to level. If you open this function up, then we see that here we have some logic for basically going from one level to another. So if the current map is gameplay map 1, then we want to server travel to gameplay map 2. And if the map is 2, we want to travel to map 1. Now, since we added an additional map, we also have to expand this switch on string. So open this one up and paste in here the new level name. So what I'm going to do is copy paste map number 2 and switch out map 2 with map 3. Then we get this additional pin here. And then we basically want to code that if we are in map 3, that we want to go to a different map than map 3. So in this case, if we are in map 3, let's actually teleport to map number 1, as it says here. Okay, that's all you have to do for hosting the game. Now let's talk about the required gameplay actors in order to make this game work. So first of all, if you click here on Blueprints folder, then go into Core, into Gameplay, then over here we see Actors. And the first thing that you have to do is that you have to create an actor, which is called a Player Start. So to get Player Start, you click here on the top left, and then you go to Basic, and then here you can see a Player Start, which you can drag in and then rotate so that this little arrow aims in the right direction. So that's the first thing you're gonna do, put some Player Starts in here so that when you actually click on play, your player can actually properly spawn. Then the next thing that we want is this screen actor over here. This screen actor is actually counting down the time before the match starts, and you can find that under actors, and then here you see blueprint screen. Now if you drag this one in, you simply want to rotate it in place, and this will display the countdown time before the match actually starts. This countdown time can be changed over here under gameplay in core. If you click on blueprint game state gameplay, then we see here that in the event graph, we see this variable called round countdown. It can also be found here on the bottom left under variables, category rounds, round countdown. And by default, we set the countdown to 15 seconds before the match actually starts. So if you want to decrease this time to, let's say, 5 seconds, then that's the time before your game actually starts. And then this screen over here will automatically start counting down at 5 seconds. So if I hit play now, we see that all of these screens here start to count down from 5 seconds. Go. And then we go, and then we are able to walk at that point. Okay, then the next actor that is required is this field that we see in the world over here. So we can click it, it's a tiny line. Yeah, so we can click it over here. And if we click on the actor folder, we see the field over here. So it's blueprint kill field. Now what this does is if you jump in the kill field, it will basically respawn your character at your last checkpoint. So to get the kill field, you simply drag it in like this. And then you get this kill field here, which you want to put somewhere under the map for when the player jumps off your level. And you want to scale this up as big as it is shown over here. So a pretty huge kill field you want, so that when the player falls in there, he can actually respawn. So that's the second actor that you require for the game mode to work. Then we get to the checkpoints. So like I said, if the player falls into a kill field, they basically respawn at a checkpoint. Checkpoints you can just drag in like this, and then you can also set the scale of it like this. And a good example can be found over here. So in map 2, we have checkpoint number 1 over here. And what happens is that essentially the player walks through this checkpoint volume here, and then they will respawn at the player starts that are correspondent to the checkpoint. So the way it works is when you drag a checkpoint in and go to the detail panel, then over here on the right, you see a checkpoint ID. So this checkpoint is set to checkpoint 1. I could also set this to checkpoint 2. And as you see, the number here of the checkpoint automatically updates. So you can make any type of checkpoint you want here. You can also call it checkpoint A, for instance, instead of checkpoint 1, 2, or 3. So let's make this checkpoint 1, and then what you have to do in order to make the checkpoint work is that once the player walks through here and, for example, jumps into the water, falls through the kill field, then they respawn at these player starts that have the same ID as the checkpoint. So if you call your checkpoint ID here, if you set it to 1, then what you do is that you drag a player start in here. So go to basic and drag in a player start. Then make sure that you aim it in the right respawn direction. And that once you have this player start selected, you see here player start tag, and then you set this to the same tag that the checkpoint is set to. So if this is checkpoint 1, this is set to tag 1. And then if we go further down the line here, we see a secondary checkpoint over here. So here we have checkpoint 2 with player starts that have a tag of checkpoint 2. All right, once we got these actors in place, then we can start placing all of the fun gameplay actors. So these are the actors that will actually make your level harder. And we got a couple of them, and each of these actors we can manipulate some settings from to make them behave different. So let's look at the first one. We got this big bumper over here. What I recommend is that you combine a bumper with a background, something like this. So this is simply a big block, but you can use any assets yourself from the marketplace as well. And these actors can basically be combined with them. So what I always do here in the example levels is that we have this big static mesh of a block, and then I scale that up, and then I attach one of these bumpers to it. Now what does the bumper do? It basically extends forward, and then if it hits the player while extending forward, the player will start to ragdoll and will respawn. So this bumper can be used. We also have these jump pads over here, and then with these jump pads over here, you will launch in the direction that you jump on it. So if I jump on the edge here, I will launch back that way. If I jump neatly in the center of this jump pad, I will launch straight up. And then here you can set the bounce velocity. So currently it's set to 1500, but you can increase it to something like 3000 to make the player jump further. Then we also have this fun drawbridge actor. So it's this one. You see it over here installed in the level. This actor, you have a switch here, which you can say, I want this drawbridge to open upwards or downwards. So you can change it like that. We also have over here on the right, we have this hatch actor. You can install this one over here. And this hatch actor will randomly open up. So sometimes it will open, close, but you can also turn on this switch so that the actor will actually respond to the player. So once the player jumps on it, there is a chance that it opens or a chance that it does not open. Then some other actors that we have is this lift over here. So the lift can simply be dragged into the level. And then if I go to assets and go to level props, then I got this big block here. And the lift can be combined with these blocks. So if I attach the block here to the lift, then we can click on the lift and the lift will go up and down. So it will basically go like this, up and down. And then we can say the number of floors that the lift has to travel. So currently it travels 1 floor, which means 1 of these blocks. But let's say that I have 2 of these blocks, then I can also click on the lift here and set this one to travel 2 floors. And I can drag the block up again to make 3 floors, and then I can set the lift here to travel 3 floors, and it will travel 3 floors up and down. All right, then back to the actors here. So that covers the lift. Then we also have the whirl actor. This whirl actor will simply start moving up and down. We can set the start offset. If I set this to 0.5, so to half of it, that means that this bumper will actually start here in the middle, and then I can modify the speed. So by default, it moves pretty quickly, but if I turn the speed down, it will move slower. So if we take a look at that actor, we got the actor over here. By default, if I hit play, this is the speed. But then if I select the actor and turn that speed all the way down to 0.3, for example, then you see it moves a lot slower. Next up, we got this rotating platform here. So the rotating platform, you can simply drag it into the world like this. And same again, here we can set the speed and the start offset of where it starts to spin. And then we can also say if we want it to spin in the opposite direction or not. Next up, we got this rotating beam platform. Now this platform will rotate this beam around, and if the beam actually hits the player starts to ragdoll, which looks pretty funny. So if we delete this platform over here, then I can install one here real quick. And then here you can also set the speed. So I can set the speed to something like 0.5, and then I can say rotate in the opposite direction. Now if we hit play, it will start to count down.
Ready, go.
And then I can actually start to walk around. And like I said, this beam, it will actually ragdoll my player. And then I will respawn wherever my respawn was. So this will tackle me like this. And then I have to respawn. All right, up next we have the shifting door actor. So this one can be dragged into the world like this. This door will basically move up and down and the players will have to get through this door actor. You can also set it to move linearly, so it can basically have a pause per door section. If you do move linear, it will simply move from left to right. Yet again, you can change the speed here and the start offset so that you can combine these with, for instance, 2 of these doors like this. And you can have one start over here and the other one start over here so that they move in opposite directions, making for a fun challenge. Then we also have this blueprint upward pillar. This one can simply be dragged into the world and it will randomly start going up and down. And eventually at the end of your track, so over here, that is for us, you finally install this trophy, and whoever grabs the trophy is the winner of the match and ends the match as well. And this trophy can simply be dragged into the world and it will start levitating up and down, and the first player to grab it is the winner. Alright guys, that makes up for the actors here. So at this point you can basically start to make any world that you would like. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that everything is clear here. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this product. More fun products coming soon. Alright guys, bye. See you next time.